Hello everybody, I'm Don Arleth and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. The renewed interest in Greenland's geopolitical significance is making waves. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's suggestion of bringing Greenland under American control has drawn both intrigue and controversy. Greenland's Prime Minister has emphasized the island's independence aspirations, but remains open to dialogue. With Arctic shipping routes expanding, natural resources becoming more accessible, and global powers vying for influence, what's at stake in this unfolding narrative? Well, joining us now here on TVP World to explore the issue is Scott Lucas, professor at University College Dublin. Hello, Scott, and thank you very much for joining. Good to see you again.
Great to be here. Thanks so much.
Yes. Now, let's go ahead and start off with a few opinions straight out of Greenland concerning this rather recent development about joining the United States. Let's take a listen.
Of course, we have an important position in the Arctic, but we would rather be treated as an ally than as a commodity that you can just manipulate and buy as you like. Yes, it is an artificial situation. Very strange.
To become independent for our own selves in Greenland, but there is some challenges, but we still don't know it yet, but we might come through it though.
I hope we get independence before we die.
Yes.
Yeah.
We just want to see the best in Greenland.
Yeah.
Okay, so some calls for independence, maybe not necessarily to join the United States. This is an issue that Donald Trump has talked about before when he was president last time. Where do you think this is all coming from, I guess, first of all?
Well, first, let me just say that one of the casualties about all this chatter from Trump is that it overshadows the very real issue that you heard there for the 60,000 population in Greenland. And that is they have autonomy right now as part of Denmark, but many of them would like to have independence. So that's a very important debate about the future of that area, possibly an independent country, but it's been overshadowed because of Trump's personal politics. Now, you're quite right to mention that we could look at the fact that Greenland has a large number of vital minerals, including rare earth minerals, 28 of the 34 listed by the EU. That means that there's a lot of economic exploitation that could take place there. You're quite right to mention the Arctic shipping routes. But when it comes down to Trump, this is just a personal thing that he just simply sees a big piece of land out there and he wants it to be part of his empire. He said back in 2018, at a time when Puerto Rico, which is part of the United States, was devastated by Hurricane Maria, he said Puerto Rico is poor. I'd rather have Greenland because it's rich. And that's pretty much at the level that he operates. It's the level that his son, who was sent there for a 5-hour photo opportunity last week, where he operates. What we don't know at this point is, are there advisors behind Trump who are calculating with, can we make some money out of Greenland? Can we play politics versus Russia and others by getting this territory? We don't know that, but I will come back to a fundamental. We should start every conversation with, this is a matter of sovereignty of Denmark and of Greenland. And when Donald Trump threatens military action to take over Greenland, you're in a position where you have a man who will be president in the United States in a few days threatening a NATO ally just because of his own personal thought bubbles.
Yes, obviously that's concerning. I wonder how much noise is involved with that. It seems like Donald Trump tends to throw out the ridiculous, at least to get everybody talking, and for that he's quite successful. I'd like to cite this poll that just recently came out. It's by Patriot Polling, which on the surface sounds like something that would come from the right hand of politics, but it is a apolitical, nonpartisan agency. They found, now it's a very small sample, but they found 57.3% of respondents approve of Greenland becoming part of the U.S. Just 37.4% disapproved of the potential acquisition, and 5.3% are undecided about the move. Now, considering that say it's a small population. You mentioned 60,000 people. If they were indeed able to get their independence from Denmark and then join the United States, could they live better? Could they have a better deal underneath the United States?
Well, first of all, that's a very suspect poll you're citing, with respect. Patriot polling claims to be independent and but in fact, it's one of these startup organizations which serves to serve a political purpose. I say that because, again, when Donald Trump Jr. and the right-wing activist Charlie Kirk were sent out to Greenland last week for that photo opportunity that you have been showing as we talk, what happened is that the Trump people went out and they handed out MAGA hats, basically make America Greenland again. And, it is said reliably that they were paying homeless people, offering them a free dinner in a hotel to put the hats on and to pose for the cameras. So let's cut through this. First of all, you need to go to what people in Greenland want for the future of the country reliably, not simply because the Trump people and shadowy polling organizations are doing this. In terms of could they live better under the United States? Look, there's a lot of variables in that. And the point here is that if Greenland was to become part of the United States, would they, as you heard from that interview at the very start of your package, would they be treated as equals in the United States, or would they be treated as a commodity? In other words, that they simply are there to provide raw materials for American companies to come in, make very, very large profits, and those people who are locals may or may not receive the benefits. That's a discussion which could be had if people in Greenland want to have that discussion. But at this point, most people in Greenland want to have that discussion not with the United States, but with Denmark. And that's what's being overshadowed with all the chatter that Donald Trump is putting out.
Right. So first of all, whether they'll become independent. Second of all, on what terms they would ever even discuss coming into the United States, if that is indeed something they would consider. Now, concerning the United States' presence in the Arctic, of course, we know there's just this little piece where Alaska is. Canada obviously has a huge chunk of the Arctic, and Greenland does as well. How does that play into the decision-making and the strategic importance for Greenland and how policymakers weigh bringing Greenland into the United States?
Now, if we could get away from Trump and get back to an important precedent, if you look at what happened just after the end of World War II, as countries are reassessing their geopolitical positions, the Truman administration basically thought about, can we acquire Greenland, similar to how the United States did acquire Alaska in the 19th century. And the reason why it did that is because Greenland not only has these materials that you talk about, but it has that very important position, which effectively gives it it's a watching post on everything that happens up in the Arctic. And so what happened at the end of the day is that the Americans did not purchase Greenland, but of course you have American military bases that are there. The early warning system for decades during the Cold War against the Soviets, Greenland's an important part of it, and Greenland is still an important part of what would be an early warning system if relations go pear-shaped again, say, between the United States and the Russians, and indeed the Europeans. So Greenland has an important position, not just for the US, but for Europe, because of course it's part of the European defense system. And that, I think, is where a legitimate and a badly needed discussion should be had in terms of how do you balance what Greenland wants for themselves versus the fact that it does have this security importance, especially with relations with Russia not looking to be improved in the near future.
Certainly. And then critics say Denmark lacks the capacity to defend Greenland's Arctic interest. Do you think that this gap could justify someone like the United States stepping in? Could the United States benefit both the people of Greenland and the country of the United States better by acquiring Greenland?
But defending Greenland can already be done. I mean, it can be done through NATO, for example. I mean, that's, which the U.S. is still part of as far as I'm checking, although Donald Trump may try to pull it out in the near future. But I think more important is if you look at what Denmark's looking at in terms of its future, it's what the Scandinavian countries are looking at. For Denmark, for Sweden, for Finland, for Norway, with Sweden and Finland coming into NATO and with the increased Russian threat, the whole question about maritime security has been elevated. So it's not just a question of Denmark on its own protecting Greenland's security. It is part of a collective effort in which Greenland is part of Europe. And that's why, again, Donald Trump, he gets in the way of important discussions because he steals the headlines. This question of European security and where Scandinavian fits within what is a very quickly changing Europe, whether it's the EU, whether it's NATO, whether it's other organizations, that's the discussion that I hope that we'll be having if we can get away from, let's say, the smoke and mirrors of the Trump era.
All right, Scott Lucas, professor at University College Dublin, thank you very much for this conversation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that concludes this edition of World Talks. Thank you for watching, and stay with us for more here on TVP World.